Hi guys, welcome to this week's Vontolken Diaries. I say this week's, but realistically, it's been a fortnight since I've done one, and I'm not going to be able to say from now on that I will be doing them every week, and I shouldn't be saying that because they always end up being longer. Um, I'm going to say that I'm going to do them as often as I can with at least a week in between because I'm too busy with other stuff, so it's really been a good thing because I'm so busy, but I do apologise that they are further. There is more time in between two than there should be. Today I'm going to talk to you about sex. So the reason I want to talk about sex is because disregarding me being gay and the religion thing, sex is has been the most difficult um, thing that I've had to deal with in my life, and I think for me, it in some way, one way or another, has had a hand in all the most serious moments of depression and anxiety and fear that I have experienced. The reason for this is because growing up, as you could imagine, in Catholicism, sex through my parents was, it's so weird. It was never spoken about, it was always hidden. If there was anything on TV remotely, it was switched off immediately and banned. I remember there was a show, I think it was called Battle of the Sexes, and a guy was dressed up as a banana and made some sort of like penis joke, or maybe just insinuated something with a movement. I don't know. I don't actually remember. And immediately that was switched off and banned. And there was so much anger and so much like pent up animosity towards the show and towards this man when it was switched off. Like, it was just despicable that this was happening. That it made it such a bigger deal than me as an 11-year-old or 10-year-old, however old I was, even would have realised had it not been done. I don't think that really made sense. But what I mean is, I didn't even notice that there was a penis joke or a sex joke or whatever it was. But the only reason I understood that there was something to do with sex was when such a big deal was made out of it. And this is something that I have found throughout the religion, is that for me, even though, ironically, sex is hidden, not spoken about, it's so taboo, it is also so obsessed over. The fact of it being taboo, the fact of it not being talked about, that is so obsessed over. Like, it is constantly on guard for it, because who knows what's going to happen if you allow any sort of influence in it. It would just like go through everyone and ravage everyone, and then yeah, that'll be that. And having this feeling like it is just so wrong to even think or talk about meant that when I had my first kind of sexual experience, it was just, it was such there was such a dichotomy of feelings. Like, there was really like, I'm going to tell a story now that some of you might not want to hear. So it's about me having a sexual experience. So if you don't want to hear it for whatever reason, whether you're related, whatever, just switch off, or you're young, switch off. But when I was like 13, I got called a wanker at school. Why, I don't know, because I don't think I'm ever a wanker. No, that's a lie. I have been a wanker. But anyway, I got called a wanker. I didn't know what it meant. So I went home and I asked my sister, and she told me it means that someone who masturbates. I then didn't know what that meant, which is indicative of me being so naive. And again, sex never being spoken about, nothing being covered, didn't have any sex ed at school, nothing. And so I went to the Encyclopedia Britannica and looked it up in the dictionary. And once I had looked it up, I decided it would be appropriate to conduct some experiments in the closet, ironically. And I conducted these experiments. They all went to plan. The definition was right. And after the first 2 times I did this, I cried like a baby. Because although I didn't know previously what masturbation meant, I obviously understood that the sexual element of it. And anything to do with sex was so frowned upon and I was so guilt-ridden by that I thought I was the worst person in the world. I thought I was sinning like no one had sinned before. And although, considering you're a teenage boy and you've opened Pandora's box, I continued to conduct experiments and I didn't cry anymore. What I realized later on in life was that those feelings of guilt were always there. And rather than just be there and go, they built up in me and they became a force, an entity onto themselves. And it meant that I was so awkward, and so I remained naive and awkward around sex. I didn't really have sex a lot, but I had a really high sex drive, which then added to the whole kind of strange feeling about it, because it was really a constant urge, almost constant urge. And I mean, I know people will say, well, as a teenage boy it is, but that's been the mainstay of my life. It's a constant urge. And in my late teens and 20s and even early 30s, it was just so hard to feel anything but horrible about who I was and how I felt about sex and the urge to have sex, that, like I said, I just didn't do much of it. I even once went, because I felt, it's so funny, I thought about it so much. I don't think I had sex in like 3 years, 4 years, something like that. And I decided to go to a Sex Addicts Anonymous meeting because I felt that I was so addicted, even though I wasn't having it, I was still addicted because it was just constantly in my mind and I felt so guilty. And the funny thing is, when you feel that guilty and that builds up, that feeling is always there and always reminds you of sex. So you might not think of sex and then feel guilty. Sometimes you just feel shitty and then think of, it's like sex is the first thing that you think of. Well, at least it was for me. So it really did inhibit my life and who I was, because your sexuality and who you are when it comes to sex and expressing yourself through your sexuality is such an integral part of who you are and such an integral part of how you relate to other people, and not just other people you're attracted to, but just in general. Obviously, to a lesser or greater extent, depending on who the person is, but it really does. And again, I was just this really awkward and naive person who really shut himself away from other people and felt like, because this was a part of him that was, it's so interesting, this was a part of me that was so prominent and yet so empty at the same time. Like it was something that was there but not. That I felt like an full person. I felt like an unfull person. I felt like I felt less than everyone, really. And I don't think it would have mattered if I was straight, because it wasn't to do with the gay thing. The gay thing added another element to it, of course, with the religion. But I really think that even if I was straight, sex in general would have had the same sort of effect on me, and the thought of sex and all of that, and how I was raised to think about sex. Like, really, I truly do. I don't know if I'm really getting across how difficult sex in general has been for me, but it really has been. It's been such, even to this day, it's not easy. I think it's so much easier than it was, but it's still something that just doesn't sit comfortably with me yet. Like, I what I mean by that is, I have no problems and I don't feel guilty about it anymore. And I go, it's who I am and it's natural and all that. But there is something that I go, I think maybe there's exploration that I still hold off on thinking about because of how I think there's still that little seed that anything just too sexual is negative and is sinful and means you're a bad person. Oh, that was gross. On more levels than one. So next week I'm going to do a second video. I think I maybe said this, maybe I didn't. But second video on porn, because I have enough to say about that. That's been a part of my life, and enough to say about that to conduct a whole video. But I really do just want to say before I finish up this one that your sexuality and who you are and how you want to express yourself sexually, as long as it's being consented by anyone else that's involved and you're not harming other people, then be who you are. Be who you are. There should be no guilt about that. Really, truly. Because it doesn't just impact on your sex life. For me, it impacted on my relationships in general and who I was in general, which then really meant that I had no confidence and no strength in who I was and as a performer and as a creative and as all of that. It really did. And again, that might sound ridiculous or tenuous, but it really did. It really impacted majorly. Okay. Well, I hope that all made sense and it was a bit of a cohesive tale. I hope you're all really well, and I hope that you stayed with me through the 13 and a half minutes. I will see you hopefully in a week, but if not, probably within 2. All right, guys. Be well.